The cruelest thing my ex-wife did was not returning my letters. It was not telling our son I had abandoned him. It was not letting him grow up believing I chose another woman, another life, and another family over him. The cruelest thing was the telescope. For 10 years, I thought the first birthday gift I sent after he disappeared had been rejected, thrown away, or left to rot in his grandparents' garage. I had the postal sticker. I had the receipt. I had the returned box number written in my own handwriting in a file I kept beside every other failed attempt to reach him. Then my son found an old church picnic photo. He was 8 in the picture, maybe 9, standing under a white pavilion in Missouri, looking through that exact telescope backward, because of course he was. He always did that with anything that had lenses. He said the world looked funnier when grown-up things were used wrong. His grandmother was standing behind him, smiling. My ex-wife was at the edge of the frame, looking away. On the back of the photo, someone had written Eli with telescope from Grandma. Not from Dad. Not from Aaron. Not from the father who had wrapped it in blue paper with silver stars and written, I love you. I am looking for you. From Grandma. That was the moment my son finally understood what had really happened. They had not simply blocked my love from reaching him. They had let pieces of it through, scraped my name off, and handed them back to him as proof that someone else loved him better. By then, he was 18 years old, sitting at my kitchen table with both hands around a coffee mug he had not touched, staring at the photo like it was a crime scene. He had my eyes. His mother's guarded mouth. And a childhood full of stories that were beginning to collapse. He did not cry when he saw the court papers. He did not cry when he saw the child support records. He did not cry when I showed him the missing person reports, the private investigator invoices, the open envelopes, or the school form where my name had been crossed out and another man had been written in his father. But the telescope made him put his hand over his face. Because he remembered loving it. He remembered sleeping with it next to his bed for weeks. He remembered thanking his grandmother. He remembered his mother standing nearby, saying nothing. He looked at me over the top of that photograph and said, I had one thing from you, and they made me thank her. I had spent 10 years imagining what I would say if my son ever came back. I imagined explanations. Apologies. Proof. Rage. I imagined myself calm, controlled, ready. But nothing prepares you for hearing your child grieve a memory he already lived. So I did the only thing I could. I sat there with him and let the silence tell the truth neither of us had words for yet. Before all of this, my son's name was Ethan. Ethan Reed Walker. He goes by Eli now. His mother gave him that name after she left, because she said Ethan belonged to a life she was trying to escape. I did not learn that until years later. At the time, Ethan was 8 years old and obsessed with space, alligators, grilled cheese cut diagonally, and a blue toy race car with a broken spoiler. He carried that car everywhere. He said it was lucky because I had bought it during a thunderstorm at a gas station when our real car broke down on the way back from visiting my sister. He also hated tags in shirts, thought yellow tasted louder than blue, and asked questions that made adults tired if they were not careful. Can astronauts see sadness from space? Do trees miss their leaves? If dinosaurs are dead, how do we know they were loud? I wrote some of those questions down later because I became terrified of forgetting him one detail at a time. His mother, Marissa, used to roll her eyes when I answered every question as if it mattered. You encourage him too much, she would say. I never knew what that meant. I still do not. Marissa and I were married for 9 years. We were not one of those couples who smashed plates or screamed in the driveway. That would have been easier to explain later. We were worse in a quieter way. We disappointed each other slowly. I worked maintenance at St. Catherine's Medical Center in Wichita. Second shift most weeks. Automatic doors, sink traps, ceiling tiles, call buttons, bad wiring, jammed locks, leaking ice machines. The kind of work people only notice when it stops getting done. Marissa did payroll for a roofing company. She was smart, organized, and embarrassed by almost everything about our life. The duplex embarrassed her. My job embarrassed her. My truck embarrassed her. The way I came home smelling like pipe sealant and hospital disinfectant embarrassed her. She never said, "I am ashamed of you." She said things like, "I just want us to keep moving forward." Forward was Marissa's favorite word. Forward meant better neighborhoods, better clothes, better churches, better people, better stories to tell about ourselves. I did not mind wanting better things. I wanted them too. But Marissa wanted better so badly that ordinary life started to feel like an insult to her. She loved Ethan. I need to say that because it makes everything harder and truer. She loved him. She packed his lunches with tiny notes. She took pictures on the first day of school. She stayed up when he had a fever. She remembered which cereal he liked and which cartoon character he had outgrown. She was not a mother who hated her child. She was a mother who needed her child to belong to her version of the story. Those are different things. The last normal morning I had with my son was a Tuesday in October. I remember because he spilled orange juice on his spelling homework and looked at me like the world had ended. I told him teachers had seen worse than juice. He asked if alligators were dinosaurs. I told him no, but they had the personality. He laughed so hard he forgot he was upset. Marissa came into the kitchen wearing a blue blouse and earrings I had never seen before. She kissed Ethan on top of the head. She did not kiss me. I noticed. Not enough. Ethan put a little green triceratops in my jacket pocket before I left for work. For protection, he said. I told him hospital sinks were afraid of triceratops. He said, "Good." At 7:42 that evening, while I was replacing a broken latch on a supply closet, I got a text from Marissa. Taking Ethan to my mom's for a few days. Need space. Don't make this ugly. I called. No answer. I called again. No answer. By the fifth call, I stopped pretending I was not afraid. I left work early and drove home so fast I barely remember the road. The duplex was dark except for the porch light. Before I opened the door, I knew. There is a difference between a quiet house and an emptied one. Quiet has breathing in it. This did not. Ethan's backpack was gone. His toothbrush was gone. His favorite blanket was gone. Half his clothes were missing. Not all. Just enough to leave confusion behind. His dresser drawers had been opened and closed badly. One sock lay near the closet. His library book was still on the bed. The blue race car was on the floor. That was what broke me first. Not Marissa's closet. Not the missing suitcase. The car. He never would have left that car. I called her mother. Carol answered on the sixth ring. Aaron, this is not the time. Where is my son? They're safe. Where? She needs space. Put Ethan on the phone. She said not to do that. She doesn't get to say that. Carol sighed the way people sigh when they have already decided you are unreasonable. If you had been paying attention, Aaron, maybe this wouldn't feel so sudden. I drove to Carol and Dennis's house that night. They lived 30 minutes outside town in a ranch house with yellow porch lights and a driveway Dennis kept too clean. He opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Is he here? Dennis looked past my shoulder, like he expected police behind me. No. Where are they? I don't know. You don't know where your daughter and grandson are? She said she needed a few days. Where? Carol appeared behind him in a robe, arms crossed. Do not come here acting unstable. Unstable. That word was waiting for me before I ever raised my voice. I remember standing on that porch with one hand on the doorframe, feeling the shape of the trap before I understood it. If I got angry, I became unstable. If I begged, I became manipulative. If I went quiet, I became guilty. I said, I just want to know where my son is. Carol's face did not change. Then maybe you should have been more of a husband before trying to act like a father. Dennis looked down. That was his role for the next 10 years. Looking down. The next morning, I went to Ethan's school. The office smelled like pencil shavings and floor cleaner. There were paper pumpkins on the wall with children's names written on them. Somewhere in that building was probably one with Ethan's name, and I was standing 10 feet away from it being treated like a stranger. The secretary recognized me. Her smile faded when I asked where my son was. He was withdrawn yesterday. By who? His mother. Where was he transferred? She looked at the principal's door. I'm not sure I'm allowed to release that. I'm his father. I understand, Mr. Walker, but there's a note. What note? She lowered her voice. It says contact through the mother only for now. I put my driver's license on the counter. I have signed field trip forms here. I have come to conferences. I brought cupcakes for his birthday last year. You know me. The principal came out and used the tone people use when they want to sound kind while locking a door. We cannot get involved in domestic matters. This is not a domestic matter. My son was taken out of school without my knowledge. He folded his hands. You may want to speak with an attorney. So I did. The first attorney told me to document everything. The second told me it would be expensive. The third asked if there was a formal custody order. There was not. Marissa and I were still married. I had never imagined needing a court order to be a father in my own house. That was the first mistake I could name. There were others. I had ignored the church 2 towns over where Marissa had started spending more time with her parents. I had ignored the new phrases she brought home. Leadership. Household covering. Emotional safety. Forward movement. I had ignored how often the name Daniel Pierce came up. Daniel from church. Daniel with the nice house. Daniel who had lost his wife and raised 2 daughters. Daniel who helped Carol repair her deck. Daniel who understood stability. When I asked why his name kept showing up in our conversations, Marissa told me I was insecure. I believed her because I did not want to be the kind of man who made his wife explain every male friend. I did not know she had already started building a new family before removing me from the old one. 3 weeks after she disappeared, I was served divorce papers outside the hospital loading dock. I remember holding them with grease still under my fingernails. The petition said Marissa had relocated temporarily for emotional safety. It said I was controlling. It said my work schedule made me unreliable. It said I had limited involvement in Ethan's daily care. Limited involvement. I read those words in my truck with my lunch untouched beside me. I was the parent who knew he hated the seam in socks. I was the one who cut his grilled cheese diagonally. I was the one he called when there was a spider in the bathtub because Marissa said spiders were not a mother emergency. But on paper, I became limited. That was the first thing I learned about losing a child through paperwork. The paper version of truth gets to the room first. I filed a police report. The officer was polite and tired. Is there a custody order? No, we're still married. Has she threatened to harm the child? No. Do you believe he is in immediate danger? I did not know how to explain that having one parent erased can be danger without blood. I said yes anyway. What kind of danger? I looked at the wall behind him, where a faded poster explained how to report stolen property. She took him and won't tell me where he sleeps. The report was filed. Nothing happened. I filed motions. Marissa's attorney appeared by phone. They used Carol and Dennis's house as the mailing address. They claimed Marissa and Ethan were in a confidential location because she felt unsafe. Unsafe. Another word that arrived before proof. There was no restraining order. No police report against me. No hospital visit. No neighbor statement. No allegation that I hit her or Ethan. But once the word unsafe enters a courtroom, every normal fatherly act starts wearing a disguise. Calling is harassment. Visiting is intimidation. Letters are pressure. Questions are instability. The judge did not terminate my rights. The judge did not say Marissa was right. But the judge also did not produce my son. I was ordered to pay temporary child support through the state system. $1,200 a month. I paid it. People later asked why I did not refuse until she gave me an address. Those people have never sat in a courtroom and understood that if you stop paying, you become the exact lie they already told about you. So I paid. Every month. On time. The money went through the state, then to the mailing address Carol and Dennis provided. The support found them. My son did not. That became the pattern of the next decade. Money could reach him. Court notices could reach him. Legal filings could reach him. My love could not. The first gift was the telescope. Ethan's 9th birthday. He had been obsessed with the moon before he disappeared. He used to ask if astronauts could see people's houses from space. I told him probably not, but maybe they could see porch lights if enough people were waiting. I bought a beginner telescope from a science shop near the hospital. Nothing fancy. Plastic. A little tripod. A box with a bright picture of the moon on the front. I wrapped it in blue paper with silver stars and wrote a card. I did not know what to say to a child who might never see it. So I kept it simple. Happy birthday, buddy. I love you. I am looking for you. Dad. I mailed it certified to Carol and Dennis's address. 2 weeks later, it came back. Refused. Not undeliverable. Refused. I drove to their house with the box in the passenger seat. Dennis met me in the driveway before I reached the porch. You need to stop this. I lifted the box. It's his birthday gift. We are not a delivery service. Then give me the address. I don't have it. Dennis. His eyes flickered toward the house. Carol opened the front door. You are making this about yourself, she called. That sentence stayed with me because it was so cleanly cruel. As if wanting to give your child a birthday gift was vanity. As if love became selfish if it inconvenienced the people hiding him. I set the telescope box down at the edge of their driveway. I should not have. I was exhausted, humiliated, and foolish enough to believe an object might shame them into decency. It was gone the next morning. For 10 years, I believed they had thrown it away. That belief hurt. The truth hurt more. After the telescope, I sent books. Returned. A winter coat. Returned. A Lego set. Returned. Birthday cards. Returned. Christmas cards. Returned. Sometimes the envelopes came back unopened. Sometimes they came back opened and taped shut. That detail changed me. The first open one arrived in March, not tied to a holiday. I had written because Ethan would have been finishing 4th grade, and I remembered how nervous he used to get about math. I wrote, when you get stuck, do the ones you know first. It was advice about multiplication. It was also the only safe way I knew to tell him how to survive. The envelope came back with a return sticker, but the flap had been opened and sealed again with clear tape. Not torn by a machine. Opened by hands. Someone had read it. Someone had decided my words were not for my son. Someone had touched the paper, folded my love back into the envelope, and returned it like a bill sent to the wrong address. I took photographs. I called my attorney. He said it was troubling. Troubling became one of the words I hated. There was a whole vocabulary people used when they wanted to acknowledge damage without having to stop it. Complicated. Civil. Alleged. Concerning. Best interests. Both parties. Troubling. Both parties was the worst. Both parties made it sound like Marissa and I were standing on opposite sides of a rope pulling equally hard. But one of us had the child. The other had returned birthday cards and a wage garnishment. I hired a private investigator named Leonard Harris. Everyone called him Len. He had an office above a tax preparation place and a mug that said "World's Okayest Detective." He was the first person who did not speak to me like I was either dangerous or pathetic. He asked for names, dates, old addresses, relatives, church connections, vehicles, employers, anything tied to Marissa. I gave him everything. He found fragments. A rented mailbox in Arkansas. A utility account opened under a variation of Marissa's middle name. A church directory listing Daniel Pierce with a wife named Rissa and a son named Eli. Eli. The first time I saw that name, I sat in Len's office staring at the printed page until the letters blurred. Daniel Pierce. Rissa Pierce. Eli Pierce. A family photo had been copied from the church website before the page disappeared. Daniel stood in the middle, polished and square-shouldered, his arm around Marissa. His two daughters stood on either side. In front of them was a boy with my son's ears. The caption said, "The Pierce family." Not Ethan. Not Walker. Not Marissa's son. The Pierce family. Len told me not to drive there alone. I drove there alone. 8 hours into Missouri with coffee I could not taste and a printed photo on the passenger seat. I rehearsed everything. What I would say if Ethan opened the door. What I would do if Daniel blocked me. How I would keep my voice calm if Marissa called the police. The house was real. White siding. Green shutters. Basketball hoop. Hanging plants on the porch. A child's bike leaned near the garage, but it was too small for Ethan. I sat down the street with my hands on the wheel, trying not to shake. When I finally knocked, an older woman answered. Not Marissa. Not Daniel. Not my son. Daniel had sold the house months earlier. She did not know where they went. I drove home that night with a speeding ticket outside Springfield and a gas station receipt from a place where I bought coffee so bad I poured it out behind the building. That receipt stayed in the file. People think evidence is always official. Sometimes evidence is proof you drove 8 hours toward your child and came back with nothing. The years became a stack. 9th birthday. 10th Christmas. 11th birthday. Another hearing. Another returned card. Another attorney bill. Another motion denied because we did not have a current address. Another support payment processed successfully. Another rumor that I had walked away. In town, people did not confront me directly. They just carried Carol's version in their faces. At the grocery store, someone from Marissa's old church saw me in the cereal aisle and suddenly became very interested in oatmeal. At the hospital, a nurse once said, "I didn't know you had a son." "I do," I said. She blinked. "Oh. I heard." Then stopped. She did not need to finish. Deadbeat is not always a word people say. Sometimes they just make space for it and let you stand there. My sister Rachel was the only person who stayed consistently angry on my behalf. She sat beside me in court. She loaned me money for Len. She made copies. She showed up at my house one Saturday with cleaning supplies and a trash bag because she said, gently, "Aaron, his room is turning into a shrine." I told her it was his room. She said, "He's not here." I know. Do you? She was not trying to hurt me. That was the problem. She was trying to save me from the thing I was using to survive. Ethan's room still had dinosaur wallpaper, toy cars on the shelf, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and the Navy comforter with planets on it. His books were exactly where he left them. The blue race car sat on the second shelf because I could not stand seeing it on the floor anymore. Rachel stood in the doorway holding the trash bag. I said, "Don't." She looked at me for a long time. Then she folded the bag and put it under the sink. "I'm sorry," she said. That was the closest anyone came to understanding. I did not keep the room because I believed he would walk back in as an 8-year-old. I kept it because the world had accepted a version of reality where my son no longer had a father, and I needed one place where that was not true. One place where his name still belonged to something. One place where I had not been crossed out. The 5th year, I thought I saw him at a county fair. A boy in a red baseball cap near the livestock barn turned his head, and for half a second I saw Ethan at 13. I dropped my lemonade. I said his name. The boy's mother stepped in front of him. A stranger. Not my son. I apologized and walked to my truck, where I sat with the door open until Rachel found me. That night, I started a notebook. Not for court. For memory. I wrote down everything I was afraid time would steal. He liked ketchup on scrambled eggs. He called escalators moving stairs. He hated shirt tags. He sang in the bathtub when he thought nobody heard. He thought yellow tasted louder than blue. He once asked if the moon followed our car because it was lonely. I wrote those things because Marissa could change his name, move him across state lines, rewrite my place in his life, but she could not know which questions made him stare out the car window. Unless I forgot. So I did not forget. In the 8th year, Daniel Pierce emailed me. No subject line. 4 sentences. "Aaron, I was told not to contact you, but I need to ask that you stop sending packages to Carol and Dennis. It upsets the household every time one comes. Eli is doing well and does not need confusion. Please respect the life Marissa has built." I printed it before I replied. "Daniel, if you know where my son is, tell me. I have paid support every month. I have court records confirming I am his father. I have never stopped trying to contact him. If you were told otherwise, you were lied to." He did not answer. A week later, Marissa's attorney sent a letter accusing me of trying to destabilize the child through third-party contact. Third party. Daniel could live with my son, be written on school forms, attend church picnics, teach him to drive, and stand in family photographs. I was third party. That word did not make me angry at first. It made me tired. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes and changes your posture. By the time Ethan turned 18, I had spent just under $74,000 trying to find him. Attorney fees. Private investigator fees. Court filings. Document requests. Certified mail. Process servers. Travel. Hotels. Gas. Copies. Printer ink. Time off work. A cracked phone screen from dropping my phone in a courthouse parking lot when I read another useless order. People later rounded it up to 80,000. The exact number matters less than what it bought. Nothing. Or what I thought was nothing. I sent one last birthday card for his 18th. Plain dark blue with a silver line. Inside, I wrote, "You are 18 now. I do not know what you have been told. I do not know what you remember. I only know that I have loved you every day of your life, including the ones I was not allowed to see. If you ever want the truth, I will give it to you without asking you to hate anyone first." I stared at that last sentence for a long time before mailing it. It did not come back. That scared me more than the returned ones. Returned meant blocked. Not returned meant the truth had vanished somewhere I could not track. 3 weeks later, I got a message request on Facebook. The profile had no photo. The name was Eli Pierce. The message said, "Did you know Marissa Hale in Kansas? I think you might be connected to me." I was standing in the hospital basement beside a broken water heater. The room was loud with pipes and machinery. My hand still shook. I typed 3 replies and deleted them. The first sounded desperate. The second sounded like a legal statement. The third sounded like a man begging not to be erased a second time. Finally I wrote, "Yes. My name is Aaron Walker. If your birthday is August 14th, I have been hoping you would find me for a long time. He did not answer for 47 minutes. I watched every one. Then. Why would you say it like that? Because I don't know what you've been told, and I don't want to scare you. I was told you left. I had imagined that sentence for 10 years. It still hit like I had never considered it. I did not leave you. Did you know where we were? No. Did you try? Yes. Mom said you didn't. I know. She said you started another family. I did not. She said you never paid support. I have records showing I paid every month. The dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Do not talk bad about her. That was the first test. I almost failed it. I wanted to send him every report, every invoice, every returned envelope, every opened card. I wanted to bury the lie under so much paper it could not breathe. Instead, I wrote. I won't. You can ask me questions. I'll answer what I can. You don't have to believe me tonight. He read it. No answer. I did not sleep. The next morning, another message came. I remember a blue car. I read it 3 times. What kind of blue car? A toy. Maybe I made it up. I walked to his room. The blue race car sat on the shelf, chipped spoiler and all. I took a photo but did not send it. Not yet. It felt too much like using his memory as bait. So I wrote, you had one. It had a broken spoiler. You used to say it was lucky. His reply came fast. How would you know that? Because I bought it for you. That was when he agreed to meet. Not at my house. Not at his. A roadside diner halfway between where I lived and where he was staying with a friend for a summer construction job. I arrived 40 minutes early and sat facing the door. The waitress poured coffee. I did not drink it. She refilled it twice before he walked in. He was taller than I had imagined. Of course he was. But time having the nerve to keep feeding him without me felt almost insulting. He wore a gray hoodie and jeans dusty at the knees. His hair was darker than mine had been at 18. His mouth had Marissa's guarded line. But when he stopped near the hostess stand and scanned the room, his right hand tapped twice against his thigh. I knew that tap. I did it. My father had done it. 3 generations of Walker men had apparently handled fear by drumming fingers against denim. I stood. He saw me. No recognition crossed his face. That hurt, though I had no right to expect anything else. He sat across from me. No handshake. No hug. No hello that meant anything. The waitress asked if he wanted coffee. He said yes. He never touched it. For a while, we listened to silverware, old men talking near the counter, the hum of the soda machine. Then he said, "You look different from the picture." What picture? The one Mom had. What did it look like? Younger. Angry. I knew the one. Marissa had taken it during an argument 2 months before she left. I was standing in the kitchen doorway, one hand raised mid-sentence, frustrated because she had taken Ethan to Carol's for the weekend without telling me until after they left. A cropped frame. A man with his hand raised. No sound. No before. No after. That is how some lies survive. They do not invent. They crop. He said, "She told me you scared her." I know. Did you? I could have said no quickly. I could have defended myself. But he had spent 10 years inside someone else's answer. He deserved one that did not rush past the hard part. I scared her sometimes by not becoming the kind of man she wanted, I said. I scared her because I kept asking questions she did not want to answer. I raised my voice in our marriage more than I am proud of. I once punched a laundry room door during a fight with our landlord, and she saw the hole before I fixed it. I never hit her. I never hit you. I never threatened either of you. But I am not going to sit here and pretend I was a perfect husband just because she lied about me as a father. His face tightened. That answer bothered him more than a clean denial would have. He wanted a monster or a liar. I was offering him a flawed man with records. He said she worked 3 jobs. No. His jaw moved. She did. Maybe later. Maybe she told you that. But after the court order, I paid support every month. At the beginning, it was $1,200. It changed later. I have records. Convenient. It's not convenient. It's in a box. You brought a box? No. I brought a folder because I didn't want the first time you saw me to feel like a trial. He gave a short, bitter laugh. It already does. I know. I opened the folder. Not the whole decade. Just enough to show him the door existed. The first police report. The first motion. A private investigator invoice. The church directory photo. A child support payment record. I slid the first police report across the table. He looked at it but did not touch it. That could be fake. Yes. He looked up. You admit that? I admit paper alone is not trust. You can request the records yourself. That was the first time he looked at me without pure anger. You want me to check? Yes. Why? Because if you believe me only because I sound hurt, someone else can talk you out of it later. His face changed. I did not know then how many times Marissa had talked him out of his own memories. He picked up the church directory photo. Low resolution. Bad printer. A boy with his ears standing in front of Daniel and Marissa. He stared at it. I remember that shirt, he said. His voice was barely above the diner noise. It had a bear on it. I couldn't tell from the picture. Mom said you found us once and tried to take me. I drove to a house Daniel used to own. You were not there. I never saw you. She said you came at night. I came in the afternoon. She said police were called. No police came. She said I cried after. I never saw you. His face held 2 lives trying to occupy the same space. Then he asked the question I knew would come and still dreaded. Why didn't you just come get me? Because I did not know where you slept. Because every official room treated me like a complication. Because your mother knew the language that made me dangerous before I arrived. Because if I crossed the wrong line, I would prove her story. Because love without access becomes paperwork. Because I thought patience would make me look stable. Because I believed the truth would matter more if I brought it carefully. Because I did not understand that careful men can still lose children to reckless liars. But he did not need all that bitterness in one answer. So I said, I tried the legal way because I was afraid if I did anything else, I would lose even the chance to find you later. He looked out the window. A semi passed, rattling the glass. She said you didn't want me after the divorce. I never signed away visitation. She said you told the judge you were too busy. I have transcripts. He looked back. You kept transcripts? Yes. Why? Because nobody believed me unless I brought paper. We sat there for almost 2 hours. He asked questions like he was cross-examining a stranger. Why did I stop sending bigger gifts after 16? Did I know he broke his arm at 12? Did I know he had pneumonia at 14? Did I know he played soccer? Did I know he hated soccer? Did I know he learned guitar? Did I know he stopped drawing? Every no cost me something. No. I did not know. No one told me. No one called. No one gave me a school schedule, a hospital room, a team photo, a teacher's name, a report card, a birthday invitation, or a chance to sit in a plastic chair outside a nurse's office and worry like an ordinary father. At one point he said, "Daniel was there." I know. He raised me. I'm not here to take that away from you. His anger sharpened. You can't take it away. I know. You don't know anything about him. No. He showed up. I let that sit. Then I said, "I'm glad someone did." He looked like he hated that answer. Maybe because it did not give him a clean place to put me. When we left the diner, he did not follow me home. The simpler version people tell Skips that it makes better drama if the son immediately follows the father to the old room and breaks down. Real life was slower. He took the copies, walked to his truck, and sat behind the wheel for 10 minutes with the engine off. I stood by my own truck and waited because leaving felt wrong and approaching felt worse. Finally, he rolled down the window. "You could have made these." Yes. Some things could be faked. Not the state records. Not the court case. Not the payment history. Request them yourself. He stared at me. "You're serious?" "Yes." He looked down at the folder. Then back at me. "Send me the case numbers." I did that night. I also sent a photo of the blue race car. He did not answer for 2 days. During those 2 days, I went to work, signed off on maintenance orders, replaced a cracked sink trap in pediatrics, and had to leave the room because an 8-year-old boy was arguing with his father about a sticker. The father looked tired. Normal tired. Lucky tired. I stood in the supply closet holding a wrench and hated him for having the right to be annoyed by his own child. On the 3rd day, Eli messaged. I checked. There is a case. Then. A lot of filings. Then. Mom said there was one hearing and you didn't show. I showed up to all of them except one when I was in the hospital after a work accident. My attorney appeared for me. What accident? Broken wrist. Loading dock door came down wrong. She said you missed because you were in Vegas. I put the phone face down. Not because that was the worst lie. Because it was so unnecessary. A big lie can feel like strategy. A small lie reveals habit. Vegas. I have never been to Vegas. I sent him a photo from that Thanksgiving, my wrist in a cast, sitting at Rachel's table looking miserable. He replied with one word. Okay. That became our pattern. He would bring something he had been told. I would answer with whatever I had. He would disappear. Then return with another question. Once, at 1:13 in the morning, he wrote. Why should I believe you when you're both saying the other one lied? I wrote back. You shouldn't believe either of us just because we say it. Believe dates. Believe records. Believe what people cannot explain. He read it. No answer. The next week, he asked if he could see the room. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I wrote, yes. I cleaned the house badly. That is the honest truth. I vacuumed the living room 3 times and forgot to wipe the kitchen counters. I changed the sheets in the guest room even though he was not staying. I bought soda, then realized I did not know if he drank soda. I stood in the cereal aisle for 10 minutes trying to remember what he liked before remembering he was not 8 anymore. That was when I nearly broke down. Not dramatically. I just stood with one hand on the shopping cart, staring at cereal boxes until an older woman asked if I was okay. I bought 3 kinds. He arrived at 6 in an old black pickup with a dent near the tailgate. He parked at the curb instead of in the driveway. That told me more than he meant to. He wanted to be able to leave. I opened the door before he knocked, then regretted it because it made me look like I had been watching. Which I had. He stood on the porch with both hands in his hoodie pocket. Hey. Hey. That was our reunion greeting. No music. No running. Just two men, one too young to be carrying that much anger, the other too tired to know where hope belonged. He stepped inside and noticed everything. The framed photo on the mantel of him missing a front tooth. The absence of photos after that. The backpack hooked near the door. The second cereal bowl I had accidentally set out and then left because moving it felt worse. He walked slowly, not touching anything. When we reached the hallway, he stopped. His room was the second door on the right. I said, "You don't have to." He said, "Open it." I did. The air inside smelled like dust and cedar blocks. The room was smaller than he remembered. I could see it in his face. Childhood does that. Even the places that survive you shrink. He stepped in. I stayed in the doorway. Dinosaur wallpaper, faded at the corners. Toy cars on the shelf. Plastic dinosaurs on the windowsill. Glow-in-the-dark stars peeling from the ceiling. The navy comforter with tiny planets on it. The closet floor full of unopened gifts. A clear plastic bin of returned envelopes. The file crate beside the bed. He said, "This is weird." Yes. You know it's weird, right? Yes. Why keep it like this? There were many answers. Sentimental ones. Defensive ones. Broken ones. I chose the truest. Because if I changed it, I felt like I was helping her make you disappear. His face did something I still cannot name. Then he picked up the blue race car. You kept this? Yes. All of it? I wanted to say every birthday, every Christmas, every school year I missed, every book I thought you might like, every card that came back, every version of you I had to imagine because nobody would tell me who you were becoming. Instead I said, I didn't know what else to do. He looked at the closet. At the boxes. At the envelopes. At the bed. Then he sat down like his legs had stopped wanting to hold him. The mattress creaked under him for the first time in 10 years. He asked for copies. That was the first thing that made me think maybe he really was mine. Not because he believed me. Because he did not. He wanted proof he could hold in his own hands. His mother had raised him on certainty. I had to meet him with receipts. So I made coffee he did not drink, pulled the old scanner from the hall closet, and spent 3 hours copying the worst decade of my life while he sat at the kitchen table reading page after page of a man he had been taught to hate trying to find him. He did not hug me when he left. He did not call me Dad. He sat in his truck outside my house for 20 minutes with the dome light on, reading something from the folder. Later I learned it was the 9th birthday card. Happy birthday, buddy. I love you. I am looking for you. Dad. 4 simple sentences. 10 years late. The next part was not healing. It was interrogation. He went back to Marissa's house that weekend. She lived then in a clean subdivision outside Joplin with Daniel, who worked sales for a building supply company. His daughters were grown. Eli technically had his own summer job and stayed with a friend sometimes, but most of his things were still in that house. He told me what happened in pieces later. Marissa was in the kitchen making chicken salad for a church potluck when he put the folder on the table. That detail matters. Ordinary rooms make the worst conversations harder. It is difficult to accuse your mother of stealing your father while she is chopping celery. She looked at the folder and knew before he opened it. That was what he noticed first. Not her words. Her face. You saw him, she said. Not a question. Yes. She set the knife down. What did he tell you? He showed me papers. Of course he did. What does that mean? It means Aaron always knew how to make himself look like the wounded one. He opened the folder. There are police reports. He loved paperwork. There are support payments. That was court-ordered. You told me he never paid. I told you he never supported us. That is not the same thing. It is when I grew up thinking you worked yourself sick because he gave us nothing. Her eyes filled quickly. Too quickly, maybe. Or maybe not. People can cry and still be manipulating you. That is one of the crueler truths. She said, I cannot believe you are making me defend the worst years of my life because he kept some old papers. That almost worked. He told me later that it almost worked because her pain was familiar. He had been trained to treat her pain as proof. So he apologized. That part shamed him when he told me. He apologized while holding documents showing she had lied. She said, I knew he would do this when you turned 18. Do what? Try to take you from me after I did all the hard years. I'm not a kid. You will always be my kid. Then she said the line that would come back later. Do not let him rewrite your childhood. Eli left less certain than when he arrived. That is how truth works when it enters a house built on lies. It does not knock the house down at first. It makes the floor feel uneven. He did not message me for 4 days. I told myself not to panic. I panicked anyway. On the 5th day, Daniel emailed me. Subject, enough. Aaron, whatever you think you are accomplishing, you are tearing open wounds in a young man who has already suffered enough. Marissa is devastated. Eli is confused and angry. You had years to handle this differently. Please stop forcing your version of history on him. I read it twice. Then I called him. His number was in the signature. He answered on the 3rd ring. Daniel Pierce. This is Aaron Walker. Silence. Then, I should not have answered. Probably not. I meant what I wrote. I know. That seemed to throw him. I said, can I ask you one question? I do not think that is a good idea. Did you know Marissa was receiving child support? He did not answer. That silence was not ignorance. It was inventory. He was walking through years of assumptions and deciding which ones he could still afford. Finally he said, she told me there were garnishments occasionally. Every month. I do not know about every month. I can send records. I am not asking you to. No. You are asking me to stop confusing him. I am telling you the confusion started before I got here. His voice hardened. You do not know what she went through. You are right. I know what I went through. I know what the records show. I know I sent letters that came back opened. I know someone knew enough to return gifts but not enough to give me an address. He exhaled. Carol handled a lot. There. A loose thread. Carol handled a lot. Not Marissa. Not Daniel. Carol. What does that mean? It means I am not having this conversation. He hung up. I wrote the phrase on a notepad. Carol handled a lot. A week later, Eli sent me a photo. Not a document. A small wooden airplane. Blue paint chipped on one wing. The message said, "Did you make this?" I stared at it. Then walked to the garage. On the pegboard above my workbench hung the old coping saw I had used the year Ethan was 6 to make wooden ornaments because money was tight and he wanted decorations for the little tree in his room. I had made a terrible airplane. One wing higher than the other. Visible nail near the tail. Painted blue because he wanted sky color. I took a photo of the saw and the old paint can that had somehow survived a decade. Yes, I wrote. Christmas when you were 6. You said it flew better if you made the noise yourself. He replied, I found it in Daniel's garage. Did your mom know? She said she didn't remember. I did not answer right away. That airplane mattered because Marissa had told him she left with almost nothing. That she escaped. That she rebuilt from scratch. But the airplane had come from our old house. It had been packed. chosen, moved, kept. Why? Maybe Ethan cried for it. Maybe Marissa missed who she was for 1 minute. Maybe even people who do terrible things keep souvenirs from the version of themselves that did not. Then he wrote. I remember pancakes. I sat on the garage floor. What kind? Bad dinosaur shapes. I laughed once and covered my mouth because it came out broken. They were very bad dinosaurs. Mom said Daniel made those. I typed and erased. Typed again. Maybe he made some later. No. I mean those. The bad ones. I did not need to answer. That was the first memory Marissa could not move. After that, Eli stopped asking only me. He started investigating around me. That mattered. If I became the only source of truth, Marissa could still call it manipulation. So he requested court records himself. He requested his birth certificate. He went through old boxes in Daniel's garage. He charged an old phone. He asked his high school for enrollment records. He called his grandmother. That call changed everything. Carol answered cheerfully because she thought he was calling about Sunday lunch. Eli asked, "Do you remember refusing a telescope when I turned 9? There was a pause. Carol said, "Goodness, what has gotten into you? Do you remember?" "I remember your father causing a lot of stress." "That is not what I asked." "You sound just like your mother when you get worked up." "Grandma." Another pause. Then, we were advised not to encourage contact. By who? Your mother. So you knew where we were? Not always. Sometimes? Eli, honey, this was a long time ago. That phrase made him angry. He told me later he had heard it all his life. When adults hurt children, time becomes their favorite hiding place. That was years ago. You were little. It was complicated. We did our best. Eli asked, "Did you forward the support money?" That was between adults. "Did you return his letters?" They upset your mother. They were not to her. She had to read them to know whether they were appropriate. There it was. Not the full confession. Carol would never offer that. But enough. She opened them. She read them. She decided whether a father's love was appropriate. Eli hung up on her and called me. I was in my office at the hospital reviewing a contractor bid. When I saw his name, my chest tightened. I answered too fast. "Hello?" For a moment all I heard was breathing. Then he said, "She read them." I closed my office door. "Who?" "My grandmother. She read your letters. She said they had to know if they were appropriate." I sat down. He sounded younger than 18. "What did you write?" "In which ones?" "All of them." "I don't remember every word." "Did you say bad things about Mom?" "No." "Did you tell me to run away?" "No." "Did you say you were coming to take me?" "No." "Then why?" "Because your mother needed you angry. Because your grandmother loved her daughter more than the truth. Because your grandfather avoided conflict until avoidance became cruelty. Because Daniel benefited from not asking the next question. Because adults built a house around your silence and called it protection." But I said, "I think they were afraid if you knew I was still trying, you would ask why they kept saying I wasn't." He was quiet. Then he said, "Can I come over?" Yes. He came that night. This time he parked in the driveway. It was small. I noticed anyway. He brought the wooden airplane and set it on my kitchen table like evidence in childhood at the same time. "I used to hide this," he said. "Why?" "I don't know. Mom got weird when she saw it." "Weird how?" "Sad. Mad. Both." He looked at the crooked wing. She told me Daniel made it. Today I asked him. He said he didn't. What did he do after that? He got quiet. That was Daniel's role in the story. Quiet at the wrong times. Not always lying. Not always brave enough to stop lies either. Eli said, he asked if you hated him. No. You should. Maybe. Why don't you? Because hating him would be easier than understanding he may have loved you through a story that required me to be gone. Eli looked at me. That's a weird answer. I had 10 years to think about it. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he said, Mom says you're trying to turn me against everyone. I do not want that. You don't? No. Why not? Because then you lose more than you already have. That was one of the hardest truths. I wanted Marissa exposed. I wanted Carol embarrassed. I wanted Dennis to stop hiding behind silence. I wanted Daniel to admit he had lived in my place while pretending there was no locked door behind him. But I did not want my son alone in the wreckage. He had already lost a father once. I did not want truth to make him feel like he had lost a mother too, even if she had earned that loss. He said, What do you want then? I looked at the airplane. I want you to know you were wanted. His face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. He looked away toward the living room. I did not reach for him. For the next month, Eli lived in two worlds. At my house, dates and documents kept lining up. At Marissa's house, every wall had been painted with her version. She did not always attack me directly. That would have been easier to see. Instead, she gave him quiet sadness. She left meals for him. She said she was glad he was getting answers, then reminded him who sat beside him during fevers. She said she hoped he remembered who taught him to drive. Daniel. She said she hoped he did not let old paperwork erase years of sacrifice. She said, Your father is very good at making people feel sorry for him. Some days, it worked. He would arrive at my house colder. Sharper. As if he had to restore balance by doubting me. One afternoon he came with a list on his phone. Did you punch a door? Yes. His face closed. Why didn't you tell me? Because I forgot. And because if I made a list of every stupid thing I did in my 20s, we would be here all week. That's not funny. I know. Did I see it? No. You were at school. Did Mom? Yes. Was she scared? Maybe. I was angry. Not at her. At the landlord. But anger in a small apartment doesn't care who it scares. He stared at me. That answer mattered. If I denied everything, Marissa could keep the whole wall standing. Instead, I gave him the bricks that were mine. So she had reasons, he said. For leaving the marriage? Maybe. For taking you and hiding you? No. He sat with that. Then nodded once. Small. Real. Trust built between us that way. Not through grand speeches. Through me refusing to make myself spotless just to prove she had lied. The school record came next. Eli requested old enrollment files under both names. Most were ordinary. Grades. Attendance. Immunizations. Then he found the transfer packet from the year Marissa left. On one page, under emergency contacts, my name had been crossed out with a thick black line. Beside it, in Marissa's handwriting, was Daniel Pierce. Relationship, father. Eli sent me a photo of the page with no message. I was in the hospital cafeteria eating soup from a paper bowl. I looked at the image until the soup went cold. I had known Daniel became the daily father. I had seen the church directory. I had heard the name Eli Pierce. But seeing my name crossed out on a school form did something different. It was so practical. So administrative. A small black line. That was all it took to turn me into old information. I did not reply for 20 minutes. Finally I wrote, "I'm sorry." He wrote back, "Why are you sorry?" I did not know how to answer. Because I should have prevented it. Because my name should have been harder to cross out. Because I was your father and somehow a pen beat me. I wrote, "Because that should not have happened to you." He called. His voice was flat. She put father. I saw. I was 8. Yes. He wasn't my father. I stayed quiet. I called him Dad. You were a child. I called him Dad. I know. Did you know? No. He made a sound that was almost a laugh. I used to feel guilty when I didn't want to. Mom would look sad if I said Daniel instead. There are things children should never have to manage. Their mother's face after saying the wrong name is one of them. He said, "I don't know what to call you." The question in that sentence was not about names. I said, "Aaron is fine." That feels stupid. It's my name. You know what I mean. I do. What do you want? I looked around the cafeteria. Nurses in scrubs. A man arguing with a vending machine. A janitor changing a trash bag. Life going on rudely around one of the most important conversations I had ever had. "I want it to be your choice," I said. He whispered, "I hate that answer." I know. No, you don't. Everybody keeps making me choose and then saying they aren't. I'm sorry. Stop being sorry. I did. We sat in silence on the phone. Then he said, "I found something else." What? A voicemail. The voicemail was on an old phone. Technically Marissa's old phone, passed down to him when he was 13 and forgotten in a drawer after he upgraded. He charged it while looking for photos. Most messages were junk or family. One was from Carol. Dated 6 months after Marissa left. Carol's voice, brisk and irritated. "Marissa, another envelope came from Aaron." I opened it. Nothing threatening, just emotional nonsense. "I'm putting it with the others unless you want me to shred it. Also, the support deposit posted, so call me." Eli sent me the audio file. I did not play it right away. I sat at my kitchen table for almost an hour with the phone face down. When I finally listened, Carol's voice filled the room like she had stepped through time holding a grocery list and a knife. Nothing threatening, just emotional nonsense. That was what she called a father's letter. Emotional nonsense. I played it once. Then again. Then sent it to my old attorney, though by then there was no custody case to win. He called the next day. "Aaron," he said, "I wish we'd had this then." So do I. It may not change anything legally now. I know. But for your son. He did not finish. For my son, it changed everything. Not all at once. But it gave him something no one could soften. Carol's own voice. A date. A support deposit. An envelope from me. Opened. Judged. Hidden. After the voicemail, Marissa changed her story. Good liars shift. First, no letters came. Then, letters came, but they were harmful. Then, they were not harmful exactly, but they were confusing. Then, yes, maybe she should have told him more, but she was young and afraid. That last one was closest to true, which made it dangerous. She had been young. She had been afraid. Not of me taking him. Not of violence. Of losing control of the story. Of Daniel learning she had not been abandoned. Of Carol seeing her daughter as selfish instead of wounded. Of Ethan growing old enough to ask why he had a new last name but no letters from his father. Fear can be real and still not justify what it protects. Eli played the voicemail in Marissa's living room with Daniel present. He told me about it later. Carol's recorded voice came through his phone. Another envelope came from Aaron. I opened it. Marissa said, "Turn that off." He did not. Nothing threatening, just emotional nonsense. Daniel went pale at the part about the support deposit. Not shocked. Cornered. Like a man seeing a receipt for something he had paid for with belief. Eli asked, "How many were there?" Marissa said, "You're ambushing me." "How many?" "I do not know." "How many letters did he send?" Aaron was relentless. "He was my father." Daniel flinched. Marissa said, "Daniel raised you." "That is not what I asked." Daniel finally spoke. "Marissa, answer him." She turned on him then. "Not fully. Just enough. Do not start acting like you were not here." That sentence opened another door. Because Daniel had been there. Maybe not from the first envelope. Maybe not from the telescope. But enough. Eli looked at him. "What did you know?" Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. "I knew Aaron sent things sometimes." "Sometimes?" "That is what I was told." "Did you know Grandma opened them?" "No." "Did you know he paid support?" Daniel looked at Marissa. She said nothing. That silence answered. Daniel said, "I knew there were payments. I thought they were inconsistent." "Did you ask?" Daniel did not answer. That was when Eli stopped seeing Daniel as clean. Not because Daniel had lied the most. Because Daniel had chosen not to know. Some betrayals are not built from action. They are built from a long series of comfortable omissions. That night, Eli drove to my house without calling. It was almost midnight. I opened the door in sweatpants and one sock. He stood on the porch, eyes red, holding the school form. "Did you know she changed my last name before the divorce was final?" I did not. Not officially. He pushed the paper toward me. Eli Pierce. Date, 3 months after she left. Father, Daniel Pierce. Previous name, blank. But attached behind it was an immunization record with his old name. A clerical mistake. A tiny failure in the cover-up. "She erased me," he said. I said, "She renamed you." No, his voice shook. "She erased both of us." He walked past me, straight to the old bedroom, and sat on the floor between the closet and the shelf. Not the bed. The floor. As if he did not trust furniture from either life. I sat in the hallway with my back against the wall. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I don't remember your voice." That hurt more than anger. I know. I remember pancakes. The car. Maybe you singing something stupid in the truck. But I don't remember your voice. I used to leave voicemails. To Mom? To every number I had until they stopped working. Do you have them? No. Old phone died years ago. I have call logs, not recordings. He nodded. Then said, "I used to ask about you." When? When I was little. 9, maybe 10. Mom would get sad. Grandma would get mad. Daniel would say some people are not meant to stay. Some people are not meant to stay. A reasonable sounding cruelty. He said, after a while I stopped asking because everyone got weird. Of all the things Marissa took, that may be the one I still hate most. Not the birthdays. Not the broken arm. Not the pneumonia. Not the graduation. I hate that she made my son feel responsible for the emotional temperature of a room whenever he wondered about me. Children are loyal to the adults who control the weather. If a question makes the kitchen go cold, they stop asking. That night, he fell asleep on the floor of his old room. I found him curled on his side, one arm under his head, the wooden airplane beside him. He looked 18 and 8 at the same time. I covered him with a blanket. Then stood there far too long. Not because I wanted to be sentimental. Because for 10 years I had imagined checking on him while he slept, and when the moment came, it felt like trespassing. The next morning, he folded the blanket too neatly. Sorry. For sleeping? For showing up like that. You can show up. He looked at me like the sentence was more dangerous than it sounded. Don't say stuff like that if you don't mean it. I mean it. You don't know me. I know. I'm not 8. I know. I'm angry all the time. I figured. I drop people before they drop me. That makes sense. It's not a good thing. I didn't say it was. He sat at the kitchen table while I made toast. I burned the first 2 pieces. He noticed. Are you nervous? Yes. Why? Because I don't want to lose you by wanting too much too fast. He looked down. That's fair. We ate burnt toast because neither of us wanted to start over. The next layer came from Dennis. Carol was the obvious gatekeeper. Marissa was the architect. Daniel was the man who accepted the finished house and avoided inspecting the foundation. Dennis had been the wall. Quiet. Present. Hard to accuse because he rarely said enough to quote. Eli drove to see him alone while Carol was at a women's retreat in Tulsa. Dennis was trimming hedges in front of the condo when Eli arrived. He smiled like nothing had happened. Eli. Didn't know you were coming. I need to ask you something. Dennis set down the clippers. Maybe he knew. Maybe by then everyone knew the old story was leaking. They sat in the garage with the door open because Dennis had always escaped into garages. Eli asked, "Did you know where we were when my father came looking?" Dennis said, "Your mother asked us not to get involved." That is not an answer. It was a hard time. That is not an answer either. Dennis wiped his forehead with a rag. I told myself it was not my place. I was your grandson. Dennis looked away. Eli played Carol's voicemail. Dennis closed his eyes. Not surprise. Shame. Eli said, "Did you know she opened them?" Dennis did not answer. Grandpa. Yes. The word sat between them. Did you ever tell her to stop? Your grandmother thought she was helping. That is not what I asked. Dennis looked toward the driveway. No. Eli said, "Why?" Dennis's hand tightened around the rag. Because your mother was falling apart, and your grandmother said if we let one letter through, it would make everything worse. There it was. If we let one letter through, it would make everything worse. Worse for whom? Not for the child who believed he had been abandoned. Not for the father mailing love into a wall. Worse for the adults whose story depended on silence. Dennis went inside and came back with a cardboard box. Not hidden behind a loose board. Not buried in the attic. Just sitting on a shelf in the hall closet behind old tax files. People who control stories often keep souvenirs of their control. Inside were 3 opened envelopes. 2 school photos I had mailed after ordering extras before they left. A birthday card with a cartoon astronaut. And the 18th birthday card. The dark blue one with the silver line. Opened. Eli held it. Dennis said, "Your grandmother said he was trying to manipulate you." It was addressed to me. I know. You had it? I didn't know that one was in there. Eli believed him. I am not sure I would have. Tucked behind the card was a photograph. I had forgotten sending it. Ethan at 7, sitting on my shoulders at a minor league baseball game. Mustard on his cheek. Both hands on my head like he was steering me. On the back, I had written, "He said we were the tallest person in the stadium." Carol had added something in pencil beneath my handwriting. Do not send. Confuses him. Not dangerous. Not threatening. Confuses him. My existence was confusing. So they removed it. Eli left Dennis's house with the box. Carol called 7 times before he reached his truck. He did not answer. Marissa called. He did not answer her either. He drove to a park and read the 18th birthday card in the parking lot. The sentence I had almost removed was still there. If you ever want the truth, I will give it to you without asking you to hate anyone first. He told me later that was when he believed I meant it. Because by then I could have asked him to hate them. I had earned that temptation. But the sentence was written before I knew he would ever read it. That mattered. He came to my house that evening carrying the box. He did not knock. He used the key I had given him 2 days earlier after his truck battery died in my driveway. I had not expected him to use it. I was repairing a lamp switch in the living room when he walked in and set the box on the coffee table like it was too heavy for cardboard. You need to see this. We went through it slowly. Not like treasure. Like damage after a storm. The opened envelopes. The astronaut card. The school photos. The 18th birthday card. The baseball picture. Carol's pencil note. Do not send. Confuses him. I read that line once. Then set it down. I was afraid if I kept looking, I would say something I could not take back. Eli watched me. Say it. No. Say what you are thinking. It will not help you. I am tired of everyone deciding what helps me. He was right. So I said, I am thinking your grandmother decided confusion was worse than absence because absence protected the adults. He nodded slowly. Then his face broke. Not loudly. His mouth tightened first. Then his eyes filled. He tried to turn away, but there was nowhere in my living room he had to perform being fine. I hated you, he said. I know. I really hated you. I know. I used to hope you'd show up just so I could tell you I didn't need you. I swallowed. With what you were told, that makes sense. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. You were a child. I wasted so much time. You were a child. I'm not now. No. So what am I supposed to do with it? There was no good answer. What does an 18-year-old do with proof that the people who raised him built part of his life on a lie? Where does he put love that was real beside manipulation that was also real? How does he call one man dad because he was there, while looking at another man who should have been there and was kept out? There are no clean categories for that kind of pain. I said, you don't have to decide tonight. He laughed, but it came out broken. Everybody says that. But not deciding is deciding. If I go home, Mom cries. If I stay here, she says you won. If I talk to Daniel, he looks guilty. If I call Grandma, she tells me I'm being cruel. If I do nothing, I feel 8 again and everyone knows where I'm supposed to stand except me. I sat beside him, leaving space. That sounds exhausting. It is. We sat until the room got dark. Neither of us turned on a light. At some point, he picked up the baseball photo. Was I happy? Yes. With you? Yes. For real? I looked at the photo. His mustard cheek. His hands on my head. My ridiculous grin. For real. He nodded. Then said the sentence I had waited 10 years to hear and still was not ready for. I don't know how to be your son. I looked at our reflections in the dark television screen. You don't have to start there. Where do I start? Show up when you want. Ask what you want. Leave when you need to. Tell me when I get it wrong. That's it? For now. And you? What about me? What do you get? I thought about the room. The boxes. The court dates. The rumors. The support payments. The returned love. I get to know you're alive, I said. I get to stop wondering if you think I forgot you. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, card in his hands. Then whispered, I didn't know. I know. I didn't know. I know. That was the closest we came to an apology that night. It was enough. The fallout was not cinematic. There was no family dinner where I dropped a folder on the table. No courtroom scene. No public confession. Life rarely gives you lighting that good. The truth spread through awkward phone calls, changed holiday plans, unanswered messages, and people discovering that Eli was no longer available for the old version. Marissa called me once. Only once. I almost did not answer. Then I did, because some part of me wanted to hear what 10 years of silence sounded like when it ran out. She did not say hello. Are you satisfied? No. That confused her. What? No, Marissa. I am not satisfied. You got what you wanted. No, I didn't. You turned him against me. I told him not to hate you. That is convenient after handing him a museum of your suffering. Maybe that was what the room had become. A museum. I said, you told him I abandoned him. You abandoned us emotionally long before I left. There it was. The shift from physical disappearance to emotional interpretation. I was at work when you took him. You were always at work. I worked evenings so I could be with him during the day. You remember yourself very generously. And you remember yourself safely. She went quiet. I had not planned that sentence. It came from somewhere old. She said, you don't know what it was like being married to someone who made every room feel heavy. Maybe I don't. I was drowning. I believe you felt that way. You don't get to validate me like I'm one of your broken hospital machines. I am not trying to fix you. No. You are trying to punish me. If I wanted to punish you, I would have started with Daniel. Her breath caught. That was the first time I knew she had been afraid of that. Not of court. Not of me yelling. Of Daniel seeing the foundation. I didn't send him everything, I said. I didn't show up at your church. I didn't post the records online. I didn't do what you taught people I was capable of doing. She said nothing. I answered our son's questions. He is my son too. Yes. You don't get to erase the years I raised him. I'm not trying to. You are. No, I said. That is the difference between us. She hung up. I did not feel powerful. I felt tired. There is no victory in telling the truth so late that everyone involved has already been shaped by the lie. Daniel came to see me 3 days later. He called first and asked if we could meet somewhere neutral. We met at the same diner where Eli and I had sat like strangers. Daniel looked older than his church photos. Still neat. Still collared shirt. But the confidence had drained from around his eyes. He stood when I arrived. I did not shake his hand. We sat. He ordered coffee. I did not. He looked at the table. I owe you an apology. I said nothing. I do not expect you to accept it. Good. He nodded. I believed what I was told at first. I know. I should have asked more. Yes. I thought I was stepping into a situation where a woman and child had been abandoned by a volatile man. At what point did you suspect that was not the whole truth? He swallowed. When the first package came. Which one? I don't remember. You remember. He looked at me then. Maybe he wanted to deny it. Then he looked away. A Christmas box. He was 10 or 11. What did you do? Marissa was upset. Carol said returning it was best. I let them handle it. You lived in the house. Yes. You let them handle whether my son received a Christmas gift from his father. Yes. The waitress refilled his coffee. Neither of us spoke until she left. Daniel said, I loved him. I believe you. That surprised him. It does not fix it, I said. I know. No. I don't think you do. Loving him should have made you more curious, not less. He flinched. Good. Not because I wanted to hurt him. Because some sentences should land. He said, I coached teams. I sat up when he was sick. I taught him to drive. I am sure. His voice cracked. I don't know what I am now. For 1 second, I saw him not as the man who stood in my place, but as another person waking up inside Marissa's architecture and finding names written under the paint. I did not comfort him. That was not my job. You are someone who was there, I said. And someone who looked away. Eli will decide what to do with both. Daniel nodded. Then he took an envelope from his jacket pocket. I found these in a file cabinet. Inside were 2 printed emails. One from me years earlier, after his first message. If you were told otherwise, you were lied to. The second was from Marissa to Daniel the next day. Do not engage with him. Aaron twists everything. He wants access so he can punish me through Eli. My parents know the history. Trust me. Daniel tapped the page. I chose trust. I looked at it. Then at him. You chose comfort. He nodded once. You are right. That was all he came to say. It did not absolve him. But later, when Eli asked what happened, I told him the truth. He apologized. I did not make it easy. He admitted he should have asked more. Eli nodded. He did not ask if Daniel cried. I did not tell him. Some truths belong to the person who has to carry them. Carol wrote letters. 3 of them. The first was to Eli. He showed it to me because he was angry. 4 pages of careful handwriting about sacrifice, fear, protecting family, honoring mothers, and not letting bitterness destroy what people had built. The word sorry appeared once. I am sorry you are hurting. Not I am sorry I opened your father's letters. Not I am sorry I helped keep him from you. Just sorry for the inconvenience of his pain. Eli threw it in my kitchen trash, then took it out 5 minutes later because he was not ready to throw away his grandmother. That is what people do not understand about betrayal. You do not stop loving people on schedule. Even when you should. Love has habits. His had Sunday lunches, birthday checks, rides to practice, grocery store gum, grandma's Christmas cookies. Truth did not erase those. It contaminated them. That was worse. Dennis left me one voicemail. Aaron, this is Dennis Hale. I don't expect a call back. I should have done more. I told myself staying out of it was keeping peace. It wasn't. I am sorry. 20 seconds. I saved it. Not for court. For Eli, if he wanted it. When I played it for him, he sat very still. At least he said it, he said. Yes. That makes it worse somehow. I know. Because silence you can hate cleanly. Regret asks you to do something more complicated. That summer, Eli started coming by twice a week. Sometimes we talked about the past. Sometimes we did not. I taught him how to replace brake pads because his truck squealed like a trapped animal. He helped me repaint the back fence. We watched half a baseball game and discovered neither of us cared enough about baseball to finish it. He told me about his job. The music he liked. The welding certificate he was considering. How he hated soccer but played for 3 years because Daniel loved coaching. How he liked drawing when he was younger but stopped because Marissa said art was not practical. How he ended a 6-month relationship because his girlfriend said he never believed people stayed. He set these things on the table between us like he was not sure which ones I was allowed to pick up. I failed sometimes. When he said he had pneumonia at 14, I asked if he went to the hospital. He said yes, overnight. I got quiet. He noticed. What? I work in a hospital. So you were in one and nobody told me. He looked away. Yeah. I wanted to say I would have come. I would have slept in the chair. I knew which vending machines had decent coffee and which floors got cold at night. But that would have made him comfort me. So I said, I'm glad you got through it. He nodded. That was how we learned each other. Sideways. Never staring at the wound too long. One afternoon, he found the notebook. The memory notebook. I had left it in the room by accident. He came out holding it. What is this? You can read it. He opened to a page. You said yellow tasted louder than blue. He looked up. I said that? Yes. That's stupid. It was one of my favorite things you ever said. He read another line. He hates tags in shirts. He rubbed the back of his neck. I still do. I know. Your hoodie tag is cut out. He looked surprised. Then embarrassed. Then something else. He sat on the couch and read for almost an hour. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he frowned. Once he said, I don't remember this. You don't have to. He kept reading. When he finished, he closed the notebook carefully. Mom doesn't have stuff like this. I said nothing. She has pictures. But not this. She was living the years, I said. I was saving pieces. He nodded. That sounds sad. It was. You always answer like that. Like what? Like you are not trying to win. I looked at him. I spent 10 years trying to win access to you. I lost. I am trying something else now. What? Not losing what is here because I am fighting what is gone. He looked down at the notebook. A week later, he asked if he could take one of the unopened gifts. I said yes too quickly. He pointed to the stack. Which one is from when I was 12? I pulled out a medium box wrapped in green paper with faded tape. 12 had been the year I knew nothing about him, so I bought a model rocket kit because it connected to the boy I remembered without being too childish. He took it home. He did not open it in front of me. The next day, he sent a photo. Rocket pieces laid out on a table. Message, I probably would have liked this. Probably. That word was both mercy and punishment. We built it the following weekend. A model rocket meant for a 12-year-old assembled by an 18-year-old and the father who missed both ages. The instructions were yellowed. The glue had dried out, so we bought new. He was impatient. I was worse. We argued about fin alignment for 7 minutes, then both realized we were arguing like people with plenty of time and stopped. When we launched it at a park, it flew badly. Crooked. Not high. The parachute failed. It came down hard in the grass. Eli laughed. Not politely. Really? I had not heard that laugh since he was 8, but somehow I knew it. That laugh rearranged something in me. Not healed. I dislike that word now. Healing sounds too clean. This was more like a house after a flood. You pull up carpet. Find rot. Throw away things you thought you could save. Some days sunlight enters and the room almost looks normal. But you always know where the water line was. In August, Eli turned 19. The first birthday I could reach. I did not know what to do. Buy something too big, and it looked like compensation. Too small, and it looked like caution. Throw a party, and I might overwhelm him. Ignore it, and I repeated the wound. I asked what he wanted. He said, nothing weird. That was not helpful. Rachel suggested dinner. Small. Her husband, her 2 kids, me, Eli. No speeches. No singing unless he wanted. He said cake was fine but no singing. The night before, he called. Can we do it at your house? Of course. And can we open one of the old ones? Which one? 9. The telescope. The first returned gift. I told him the original was gone. He was quiet. Oh. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It was not okay. After we hung up, I went to the garage because I needed to move. I opened cabinets pointlessly. Old paint. Extension cords. A cracked cooler. Furnace filters. Then I remembered. After that first refusal, months later, I had bought another telescope. Cheaper. Still boxed. I never mailed it. I had forgotten because it had never been wrapped. It was on the top shelf behind a box of furnace filters, dusty and sealed. I pulled it down. Beginner telescope. A little dented. 10 years late. The next night, Rachel came with lasagna and cupcakes. Her teenage kids were awkward and kind around Eli. They had grown up knowing about the cousin who was missing but not dead, which is its own strange category. Dinner was almost normal. After cupcakes, no singing, I brought out the telescope. Eli looked at the box. What is that? 9, I said. His face went still. I thought. The original was gone. I bought this later and never sent it. He ran his hand over the dusty cardboard. Rachel stopped moving behind me. Eli opened it carefully. Not like a child tearing paper. Like someone opening a time capsule that might still cut. The telescope was smaller than I remembered. Plastic. Simple. Probably not very good. We assembled it in the backyard after dark. The sky was partly cloudy because of course it was. Rachel's kids helped find the moon between clouds. Eli adjusted the focus, cursed under his breath, apologized to Rachel, then found it. He stepped back. Here. I looked through. The moon was blurry but there. White, scarred, unreachable, familiar. He looked again. For a while, nobody spoke. Then he said, when I was little, I thought if you wanted to find somebody, you could just look hard enough. I used to think that too. I'm mad you couldn't. I know. I'm mad at Mom. I know. I'm mad at Grandma. Yes. I'm mad at myself even though everyone keeps saying I shouldn't be. That one may take longer. He looked at the telescope between us. Are you mad at me? No. Not even for believing her? No. Why? Because you were a kid looking through the only telescope they gave you. He laughed once, wet around the edges. That was almost a dad line. Too soon? No. The word hung there. Not a title. Not yet. But not a closed door either. In September, Eli moved into a small apartment closer to his welding program. Not with me. That was important. Marissa asked him to stay home another year. Daniel offered to help with rent if Eli stayed connected to the family. Carol mailed a check he did not cash. I offered carefully. He accepted a used microwave and a set of tools. He refused money at first, then accepted help with the deposit after I showed him the account I had opened years earlier. When child support was reduced after he turned 16, I had started putting the difference into a savings account labeled EW. Not much. $50 here. 100 there. A habit with nowhere to go. When I showed him the statement, he stared at it. You didn't have to do that. I know. Why? Because the habit of taking care of you had nowhere to go. He looked away. He accepted enough for the deposit. Not the rest. Later, he said. Later was a word I had not been allowed to have for 10 years. I carried boxes up 3 flights to his apartment. He owned almost nothing. A mattress. A folding table. 2 chairs. Clothes. The wooden airplane. The blue race car, which he had taken from the shelf without asking and then texted me from the driveway, I'm stealing this. I replied, it was yours first. He put the car on the windowsill. The airplane on the table. The 18th birthday card in his desk drawer. Not displayed. Not framed. Kept. That was enough. Marissa came to the apartment once before he fully moved in. I was not there. She brought kitchen towels, canned soup, and a framed photo of him, her, and Daniel at his graduation. In the photo, Daniel's arm was around his shoulders. Marissa had cropped it tight. No grandparents. No friends. No empty space where another father might have stood if he had known when graduation was. She set it on the counter. Eli looked at it. Then he took the baseball photo from his backpack, the one of him on my shoulders, and set it beside the graduation photo. Marissa went very still. I'm keeping both, he said. That is your choice, she answered. But her voice made it clear she did not mean it. He said, yes. She cried. He hugged her. That surprised me when he told me. Maybe it surprised him too. I don't want to hate her, he said. You don't have to. Sometimes I do. That's different. He nodded. She asked if I was going to start calling you Dad. I tried to keep my face neutral. What did you say? I said I didn't know. That's okay. She said it would hurt Daniel. I looked down. There it was again. The child managing adult pain. Eli said, I told her Daniel can talk to me about Daniel. I smiled before I could stop myself. He saw it. What? That sounded like you. He smiled too. Small. Proud despite himself. Thanksgiving came with invitations like traps. Carol wanted one normal holiday. Marissa wanted him home. Daniel texted separately and said he would respect whatever Eli chose, then added that the girls would love to see him. Rachel invited him to our house with no pressure. I said he could do whatever he wanted. He said, that is also pressure, just nicer. He was right. So I said, I want you here. I will survive if you aren't. He looked relieved by the honesty. In the end, he came to my house for breakfast and Marissa's for dinner. Breakfast was waffles because I did not trust myself with pancakes yet. He noticed. Coward. Absolutely. We ate at the kitchen table. No speeches. At one point, he looked down the hall at his old room. Can we clean it out? My fork stopped. He saw. Not erase it. Just make it not a museum. I set the fork down. Yes. That afternoon, after he came back from Marissa's quieter than when he left, we started. Not all at once. One shelf. That was the rule. We took down the dinosaurs. He kept 2. I kept the green triceratops from my work jacket. We boxed the children's books. He kept the one about planets. We sorted the toy cars. The blue one was already at his apartment. He gave some away, then changed his mind about 3 and put them in his backpack. We did not touch the closet gifts yet. Too much. But we changed the sheets. The Navy Planet comforter went into a storage bin. I put on a plain gray one. It looked wrong. Then less wrong. At the end, he stood in the doorway. It's still my room? If you want it to be. But not like before. No. Not like before. Good. That was the beginning of the room becoming a place instead of a wound. Christmas was harder. Holidays collect ghosts. The returned Christmas boxes had always been the worst because the world gets loud about family in December, and every commercial feels designed to punish people with missing children. Eli asked if we could open one gift from each year. Not all. 1. I made coffee. He brought cheap gas station cookies because he said real Christmas cookies were emotionally loaded, which was both funny and true. We sat on the floor with a trash bag for wrapping paper and a box cutter. 10. Books about space. He smiled. I would have pretended these were lame and read all of them. 11. A baseball glove. Too small. He put it on anyway. 12. The empty rocket kit box, because we had already built it. He kept the box. 13. A hoodie with a university logo from a school he did not attend. You were guessing hard. I had no data. 14. A sketchbook and pencils. He went quiet. I used to draw then. I guessed. Maybe you remembered before I forgot. He took the sketchbook. 15. A small toolkit. This actually would have been useful. I got better at practical guessing. 16. A watch. Not expensive. Simple. I bought it because 16 felt like an age where time became something a boy might want on his wrist. The battery was dead. Of course. He laughed softly. That's rude. I can replace it. No. Leave it for now. Why? Because it stopped while everything else kept going. He looked embarrassed as soon as he said it. That was too poetic. It was a little poetic. Forget I said it. No. He threw wrapping paper at me. That was our first Christmas. Not first really. But the first one that reached him. The final reveal came in January, from someone I had never met. Daniel's oldest daughter, Grace. She was 26, married, living in Tulsa. She messaged Eli first. Then me. You do not know me. I am Daniel Pierce's daughter. I found something in old family photos that I think Eli should have. I asked him if I could send it to you too because it involves you. Attached was a scanned photograph. A church picnic. White pavilion. Folding tables. People in summer clothes. Carol near the background. Marissa at the edge of the frame. And Ethan. 8 or 9. Looking through the telescope backward. My telescope. The one I had left in Carol and Dennis's driveway. The one I thought had vanished. On the back of the physical photo, Grace said someone had written, Eli with telescope from Grandma. I stared at that image until the edges blurred. The original gift had reached him. Not as mine. They had taken the first returned birthday gift, removed me from it, and given it to him anyway. That was the biggest reveal. Not because it was the most illegal. Maybe it was not. Not because it was the loudest. But because of what it proved. They had not blocked every object because my love was dangerous. They had let in what was useful. They kept the gift. Removed the giver. Reassigned the love. I sent the photo to Eli. He called less than a minute later. His voice sounded far away. I remember that. The telescope? I remember Grandma saying she got it. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry. Stop. I did. He breathed hard once. I loved that telescope. I'm glad. I used it for years. I'm glad. I used to take it outside and look at the moon. I could not speak. He said, "You gave it to me." "Yes. And I didn't know." "No." He began crying then. Not in my living room. Not where I could sit beside him. On the phone, somewhere I could not see. That was worse. "I had one thing from you," he said, "and they made me thank her. I wanted to drive to Carol's condo. I wanted to call Marissa and ask how many times she had watched our son hold something from me and let him believe it came from someone else. I wanted to ask Daniel if he had ever wondered where it came from. I wanted to ask Dennis if he knew. Instead, I stayed on the phone. Because my son was crying, and for once I was allowed to be there, even only as a voice. He said, "I don't know what to do." Breathe. That's stupid. Yes. He breathed anyway. After a while, he said, "I'm coming over." Okay. He arrived with the wooden airplane and the dead watch. He had started carrying objects between places, as if they helped him build a bridge. We printed the telescope photo. Not for evidence. For us. He held it at the kitchen table. 8-year-old him. The gift. Carol smiling. Marissa looking away. That detail mattered. Marissa was looking away. She knew. Maybe not every returned card. Maybe not every opened envelope. But she knew that telescope came from me. She knew her son was holding it. And she chose silence. Eli put the photo down. "That's why she hated when I asked about you." I nodded. "Because part of me already had you." I had to look away. He said, "I'm not going to her house for a while." Okay. Don't tell me I should. I won't. Don't tell me I'll regret it. I won't. Don't tell me she's my mother. I know she is. He looked at me. "I need you to be mad with me." That was new. I had spent months trying to be careful, fair, measured, adult. Maybe too adult. Sometimes children, even grown ones, need to know their pain is not being managed by everyone in the room. So I said, "I am furious." With who? All of them. Her. Carol. Dennis. Daniel when he chose not to ask. The school for accepting a crossed-out name without calling me. The court for moving paper and not a child. Myself for every mistake I made that made their story easier to sell. He stared. Then nodded. Okay. That was what he needed. Not revenge. Not restraint. Witness. After that, Eli did not speak to Marissa for 6 weeks. She texted. Called. Sent long messages. Some apologetic. Some defensive. Some accusing me of manipulation. Some reminding him of things she had done right. Some true. She had stayed up during fevers. She had packed lunches. She had gone to school meetings. She had held him when he was scared. That was the terrible part. She had been a mother. And she had done this. The human mind wants one category. Good mother. Bad mother. Victim. Villain. Truth rarely cooperates. Eli eventually agreed to meet her at a public park. I was not there. Daniel drove her but stayed in the car. That detail made me respect him a fraction more. Marissa brought her own folder. Eli almost laughed when he told me. Inside were old journal pages, photos of our apartment, a copy of the divorce petition, notes from counseling she attended after leaving. She wanted him to understand her state of mind. Maybe he needed to. Maybe part of her did too. She told him she felt trapped in our marriage. She told him I was emotionally heavy, sometimes angry, often withdrawn. Some of that was true. She told him she believed I would use him to control her. That was her interpretation. She told him Carol helped because she did not know what else to do. That was too generous. Eli listened. Then asked one question. Why did you give me the telescope and say it was from Grandma? Marissa looked down. Of all the records, that one object cornered her. Not the money. Not the school form. Not the voicemail. The telescope. Because there was no safety argument there. No danger. No legal confusion. No protecting him from emotional harm. It was a birthday gift. A child had loved it. A mother had watched. She said, I didn't want you attached to someone who might never be there. Eli said, he wasn't there because you kept him out. She started crying. He let her. Then he said, I'm not going to hate you because he told me not to. But I am not going to protect you from what you did anymore. That became his boundary. Not mine. His. Spring came. The room changed slowly. We painted over the dinosaur wallpaper in April. That was harder than I expected. Eli chose warm gray. He said it was boring in a peaceful way. We moved the bed. Replaced the curtains. Kept one shelf for the objects that survived. Blue race car when he brought it over. Wooden airplane sometimes. The telescope photo. The dead watch. The green triceratops. The rest became a guest room he could use without feeling like he was sleeping inside an accusation. When we painted, the old glow stars came down from the ceiling. Some left sticky marks. Eli stood on a chair scraping them with a putty knife. One fell into his hair. I laughed. What? You used to make me count those every night. How many? 43. There are not 43. There were. You made me replace missing ones. He counted what remained. 38. 5 deserters, I said. Cowards. We painted in silence for a while. Then he said, Did you ever think I was dead? The question came without warning. I set down the roller. Yes. When? Mostly at night. Not because I had evidence. Because fear gets creative when it has no information. What did you do? Got up. Checked databases. Reread reports. Sometimes drove to work early. Sometimes sat in here. He nodded slowly. I used to think you forgot my birthday. No. I know that now. We painted another section of wall. Then he said, I don't remember yours. May 3rd. He looked stricken. Sorry. Eli. What? You were not allowed to know me. That includes my birthday. He looked down at the paint tray. May 3rd, he repeated. On May 3rd, he showed up with a grocery store cake. Chocolate. Uneven writing. No name. Just happy birthday. He looked embarrassed. I panicked. It's perfect. There's no name. I noticed. I didn't know what to put. That's okay. He set it on the counter. Then, almost under his breath, he said, maybe next year. I pretended to be busy finding plates. That was one of the kindest things he ever gave me. Maybe next year. The first time he called me Dad was not during an emotional confession. It was in an auto parts store. His truck needed an alternator. We were in aisle 4 arguing over whether to buy the cheaper rebuilt one or the better one with a warranty. The clerk, a young guy with sleeve tattoos, looked between us and said, Your dad's right. Get the warranty. Eli rolled his eyes and said, My dad thinks everything needs a warranty. Then froze. The clerk did not notice. I did. Eli picked up the box and walked toward the register too fast. I followed. Neither of us spoke until we reached the truck. He put the alternator on the seat. I stood by the passenger door. He said, Don't make it weird. I was not breathing, but I'll try." He laughed. Then leaned against the truck, eyes on the pavement. "I didn't plan that." "I know. It just came out." "I know. Is that okay?" The question hurt in a beautiful way. "Yes." He nodded. Then got in the truck. I stood there another second because the world had changed in aisle 4 of an auto parts store and nobody had marked the occasion. That is how most real miracles happen. Beside oil filters. Under fluorescent lights. With a receipt in someone's hand. Marissa and Eli rebuilt something too, though not what she wanted. He sees her sometimes. Not every week. Not every holiday. He calls her Marissa when he is angry and Mom when he is not. Daniel remains in his life in a careful, reduced way. They had their own reckoning. I stay out unless Eli asks. Carol sends cards. Eli reads some and ignores others. Dennis died last winter. At the funeral, Eli asked me to come but not sit with the family. I understood. I stood in the back of the church and watched him carry grief and anger in the same black suit. Carol looked at me once. She looked away first. After the service, Eli came to where I stood near the coat rack. "Thanks for coming." "Of course." Carol approached, smaller than she had ever looked in my memory. For 1 second, I thought she might apologize. Instead she said, "He was a good man." Eli looked at her. "He was." Then he added, "And he should have done more." Carol's face tightened. But she did not argue. That was something. Not enough. Something. I no longer expect full justice from people who spent years practicing partial truth. The room in my house is not a shrine anymore. It is a room. Gray comforter. A desk Eli uses when he stays over and needs to do paperwork. A small shelf with objects that would look meaningless to anyone else. A crooked wooden airplane. A blue race car. A green triceratops. A dead watch whose battery he still has not replaced. The telescope photo in a plain frame. Not only the old one from the picnic. A newer one too, taken in my backyard beside the replacement telescope under a cloudy sky. The moon was not visible. We kept the photo anyway. Not every picture has to prove the thing it means. The unopened gifts are mostly gone now. Opened. Donated. Kept. Some made us laugh. Some hurt. Some proved how badly I guessed the boy he was becoming. Some proved I knew him better than I should have been able to. The cards are in a box he keeps at his apartment. He has not read them all. He says he wants to save some. I understand. When you get 10 years back in paper form, you do not spend it all at once. The last card we opened together was the dark blue 18th birthday card. The original. The one Dennis found. He had carried it for months before asking if we could read it again. We sat in the room that was no longer a museum. He read it out loud. His voice caught at the sentence I almost deleted. "If you ever want the truth, I will give it to you without asking you to hate anyone first." He folded the card carefully. Then put it in his jacket pocket. Not back in the box. Not on the shelf. With him. Before he left that night, he stood in the doorway and looked back at the room. "You know what's weird?" "What?" "I used to think the worst thing was that you weren't there." I waited. He touched the doorframe, the same way he had the first night. "Now I think the worst thing is that part of you was. The telescope. The cards. The money. The gifts. The memories. They let pieces of you into my life, but they took your name off them." I did not know what to say. He looked at me. "I'm putting it back." "What?" "Your name." Then he hugged me. Not like a movie. Not long enough to fix 10 years. Just a hard, awkward, sudden hug in the hallway, one of his hands still holding his keys. I held him carefully at first, then less carefully when he did not pull away. When he left, I walked him to the door. His truck was parked in the driveway, not the curb. He opened the driver's door, then turned back. "Night, Dad." No hesitation that time. I stood on the porch long after his taillights disappeared. Inside, the hall light was still on. For 10 years, I had kept his bedroom door open because closing it felt like giving up. That night, before bed, I walked down the hall and looked inside. The room was quiet. Gray comforter. Clean desk. Small shelf. No museum. No shrine. No frozen 8-year-old waiting to come home. Just a room my son could use when he visited. I turned off the light. And for the first time since the Tuesday he disappeared, I did not leave the door wide open. I left it halfway open. Enough for someone to come back without knocking. Enough for the past to stop owning the whole hallway.